Hey everyone, let's face it.
Being a school leader.
Yeah, being an educational leader,
It's not easy.
it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
All those things you got to juggle, curriculum changes, staff, and just keeping up with how much education is changing. It's like just finding time to breathe can feel impossible,
Absolutely.
let alone, achieving extraordinary results.
Right.
So that's why we're diving into this book by Gary Keller,
The one thing.
The One Thing. Yeah. And it really just nails this one powerful idea, finding that one critical task
Yeah.
and just going after it relentlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to explore what that looks like in your world, leading a school and inspiring a team, all that.
Yeah. You know what I think is so fascinating about the one thing is it really challenges a lot of these assumptions we have about how to be productive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially this idea that multitasking is the key to getting things done.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I remember reading that statistic about how workers are interrupted every 11 minutes and then spend like a third of their day just recovering from those interruptions.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine that in a school?
Oh, my gosh.
Forget about it.
It's constant. Right. It's like
Every day.
every minute practically.
A teacher pops in with something urgent. The phone rings with a parent who needs to talk to you right now.
Right.
And all of a sudden, that strategic planning time you thought you had is just completely gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just how it is, right?
It is. It's the nature of the job.
It is. It's the nature of the job. But I feel like every time that happens, we lose that focus. We lose that momentum.
You do.
It's like trying to build a house, but juggling like 5 different tools at the same time.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
Uh,
You're going to drop something.
Keller actually says that constant switching of gears,
Yeah.
that's what actually makes it so hard for us to do our best work.
He says we need to figure out that one thing, that most impactful thing we can do right now and give it our full attention.
It makes you think about those times when you're just in the zone,
Mm-hmm.
hyper-focused on something and just how much you get done.
Yeah.
But how do we make that happen when you're leading a school
Yeah.
where there are distractions everywhere you turn?
That's where this idea of going small comes in.
Going small? Okay.
Yeah, he has this analogy of planting an apple tree. You start with this tiny seed, but you're thinking about this huge tree with all these apples on it.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we apply that to leading a school with that, super long to-do list?
Right. It never ends.
It's about narrowing your focus so you can have the biggest impact.
Okay.
Think about it like this. What is that small seed that you can plant today that'll grow into something big and important for your school?
That's a good question. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like a principal who decides their one thing is to spend 30 minutes each day coaching a different teacher.
Oh, nice.
That's not a huge commitment, right?
No.
But over time.
Over time, what could that do?
Yeah, what could that do?
If you're consistently focused on coaching your teachers, you could see real improvements in how they teach, which would then, of course, impact the kids.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, it's that ripple effect Keller talks about.
I like that. And it kind of ties in with that 80-20 principle, doesn't it?
It does.
The idea that 80% of what we get done comes from just 20% of our efforts.
Mm-hmm.
How can a school leader, actually find that 20%, though?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
It really comes down to knowing your school and what's going on there. What are the things that are really moving the needle when it comes to how well the students are doing? Maybe it's targeted professional development for teachers in an area where they need help.
Or putting in a new system that uses data to track how students are doing so you can adjust how you're teaching them
Exactly.
in real time even.
It's about being strategic and looking at your data, then focusing your energy on those things that are going to have a huge impact on your school's success.
But how do you make time for all of that when, let's be real, most school leaders are already working way more than they should be?
That's so true.
It's like a badge of honor to have a calendar that's totally full.
It is.
But Keller's a big fan of time blocking.
Yes.
He even talks about Stephen King's writing schedule.
Very structured.
Yeah, super regimented.
Mm.
Can you really do that when you're running a school, though?
It might seem impossible, but it can be done.
Okay.
And it starts with realizing that time blocking isn't just about putting meetings on your calendar.
Okay.
It's about making time for the important leadership stuff.
So you're not just reacting to whatever comes up. You're actually planning time for thinking strategically, building relationships, and doing those things that make a real difference.
Exactly. And I always think about that story Keller tells about the executive assistant who made time blocking work.
Oh, yeah. Everyone thought she couldn't do it.
Right.
What was her secret?
It's a mix of things. She set clear boundaries, let her team know what her priorities were, and was disciplined about sticking to her schedule even when everything was crazy.
And I bet that took some getting used to for everyone.
It did.
But it sounds like it was worth it in the end.
It really was.
Yeah.
The payoff can be huge, not just for getting things done, but also for feeling less stressed and creating a better work environment for everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all about being more strategic with your time.
Absolutely.
And speaking of strategic, that brings us to another big idea from the book Purpose-Driven Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Keller talks about making sure your actions match up with a clear sense of purpose.
Right. Think about Scrooge.
Oh, from A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, at first his only purpose was money,
Mm-hmm.
but after he changes, it's about people.
And that changes everything.
It does.
It's amazing how much changing your purpose can change what you do, right?
Absolutely.
So how do we apply this idea to educational leadership?
It starts by thinking about your big why. Why did you decide to lead a school? What kind of impact do you want to have on your students and staff?
It's like figuring out that deep down motivation that keeps you going, the real reason you do what you do.
Yeah, and once you know that, it becomes like your compass, helping you make decisions, use resources wisely, and motivate your team to do amazing things.
It's about rising above the everyday chaos
Yeah.
and being a leader who has a real purpose and acts intentionally.
And that's how you achieve extraordinary results.
So it's not just about doing things right, it's about doing the right things.
Exactly. And to help you figure out what those right things are, Keller introduces this thing he calls the success habit.
Okay.
And it all revolves around the super powerful focusing question.
Ooh, I like powerful questions.
Right. He says you should ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do that by doing it would make everything else easier or even unnecessary?
It sounds so simple, but I can already see how that would really make you think about what's truly important.
Exactly. You have to prioritize and cut through all that noise.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're a principal, and your one thing right now is to get your students more engaged in math class.
Okay. Yeah.
You could ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do to boost student engagement in math that would make everything else easier or unnecessary?
So you're not just throwing any idea out there. You're really looking for that one action that will make the biggest difference.
Exactly. It could be something like trying out a new hands-on math curriculum, or maybe giving teachers some professional development on inquiry-based learning.
Or even starting a school-wide math challenge to get everyone excited.
Right. The goal is to find that one thing that will create a ripple effect and lead to those big results.
Makes sense. So it's about being strategic.
Exactly.
And Keller doesn't just want you to find any answer to that focusing question. He wants you to find a great answer. So you got to push yourself to think outside the box.
Yeah, go beyond what you usually do. Look at what other schools who are known for their math programs are doing.
Oh, yeah, like go visit them and see what they're up to.
Exactly. Or talk to the experts in math education and get their insights.
That's a great idea.
It's about going that extra mile to find a solution that will truly change your school.
I love that. And once you've found your one thing, you have to go all in.
Absolutely. Keller outlines 3 commitments that are key to achieving extraordinary results.
Okay, lay 'em on me.
The first is being purposeful. Remember that big why we talked about before?
Mm-hmm.
It's about making sure what you're doing lines up with your purpose as a school leader.
So it's about being intentional, making sure every effort you make is helping you reach your vision for the school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The second commitment is being productive,
Okay.
but it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter.
I know some teachers who get so much done, not because they're working all the time, but because they're so efficient.
Exactly.
They've got systems and they delegate well and they know how to prioritize.
Keller says highly productive people are always looking for ways to improve their systems. Maybe by using new technology to streamline communication or finding creative ways to delegate tasks so they can focus on those high-impact things.
Yeah, that frees up their time for what really matters,
Right. And the third commitment is accountability.
which is especially important in a school, right?
Absolutely.
Where you're responsible for everyone's success.
You're right. It's about keeping track of your progress, looking at the results, and owning up to whether or not you're reaching your goals.
And it's better to do it together. Right.
Exactly. Keller talks about having an accountability partner.
Oh, yeah, like a mentor or a colleague or a coach.
They can give you that extra push to stay on track when things get hard.
Like your own personal cheerleader, but someone who's also not afraid to give you some tough love when you need it.
Exactly.
So we've talked about focus, purpose, productivity, and accountability. But let's face it, there are always going to be obstacles that get in the way.
There are. And Keller knows that he actually identifies 4 thieves that can steal your time, energy, and focus.
Okay, thieves. I like that. Tell me more.
He calls them the inability to say no, fear of chaos, poor health habits, and an unsupportive environment.
Okay, so 4 thieves to watch out for.
Exactly. Let's start with the first one, the inability to say no. I mean, as a school leader, you're always getting requests, invitations, things people want you to do.
Everyone wants a piece of you.
Right. And it can feel impossible to say no without disappointing people or seeming unhelpful.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But Keller has this great point. If you're saying yes to everything, you're saying no to your one thing.
Oh, I see.
It's about setting boundaries, protecting your time, and having the guts to say no to things that aren't your priority.
But that's got to be tough in a school, right?
It is.
Where you're supposed to be the go-to person for everything.
It is tough, but it's not about being rude.
Right.
It's about learning to say no gracefully and respectfully.
Maybe offering other solutions or putting them to resources.
Exactly. And making sure your team knows what your priorities are and that you need to focus on those high-impact activities.
So everyone's on the same page.
Right. Now, the second thief is fear of chaos. And school leaders often like things to be organized and predictable.
Yeah.
But the truth is, schools are messy and constantly changing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will go wrong.
And usually at the worst possible time.
Exactly. But Keller says leaders need to be okay with a little bit of chaos.
Embrace the chaos.
Yeah, be flexible and adaptable, and trust that even when things go sideways, you can still reach your goals.
So being comfortable with a little uncertainty
Exactly.
and rolling with the punches.
That's right. Now, the third thief is poor health habits. We all know that if we're not taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, it's harder to be our best.
It's like trying to run a marathon with no energy.
Yes, you'll burn out fast.
Mm.
Keller talks about getting enough sleep, eating healthy food, exercising, and finding good ways to deal with stress.
So self-care isn't selfish.
It's essential. You can't give what you don't have.
Right.
Exactly. And the final thief is an unsupportive environment. This could be your physical space, like your office or your home life, or even the people you're around.
Oh, I see.
If they don't get why you're so focused on your one thing.
Like they're holding you back.
Right.
Without even meaning to.
Exactly. And Keller says it's crucial to make sure you have an environment that helps you focus and be productive.
So maybe that means cleaning up your office, setting boundaries with family and friends, or finding mentors or communities that will support you.
Exactly. Surround yourself with people and places that help you be your best self.
So it sounds like Keller has really thought about all the things that can get in our way.
He has.
But he doesn't just point out the problems. He gives us ways to overcome them, right?
He does.
Yeah.
He wants people to be patient because building new habits takes time. And he gives some great tips for making the one thing work in your life.
So he gives us the what and the how.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He says start by figuring out your one thing for different parts of your life, your family, personal growth, your career.
So not just work, everything.
Right. It's all connected. You can't be a great leader if you're not taking care of yourself and the people you care about.
Yeah, it's like if one part of your life is a mess, it's going to affect everything else.
Exactly. And for school leaders, one of the key strategies Keller talks about is time blocking, which we already mentioned.
Right, making sure you schedule those important leadership activities.
He also says to figure out when you're most focused and alert your prime time.
Oh yeah, like if you're a morning person.
Then you'd want to block off that first hour for something that requires a lot of brain power, like strategic planning or that big project you've been putting off.
That makes sense. He also gives some good tips for dealing with those thieves we were talking about earlier, like how to manage your email, delegate tasks effectively, and set boundaries between work and personal time.
It's all about setting yourself up for success,
Right.
creating systems that support your one thing.
And I remember this one story from the book that really stuck with me.
Which one?
The one about the boy solving the puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to put together this puzzle of the world, but he can't figure it out.
Right.
Then he flips it over and sees a simpler picture of a man.
Such a great metaphor.
It is.
And he realizes if he focuses on putting the man together first, the world will fall into place.
It really makes you think about how we lead, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We get so bogged down in all the details of running a school
Right.
that we forget about the most important thing,
What's that?
ourselves. our own growth as leaders.
It's like they say on airplanes, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help others.
Exactly. What if we made our own development our one thing?
Wow.
What if we focused on becoming the best leaders we can be?
I love that.
Maybe then, like in the story, everything else, our schools, our students, our communities, would all fall into place more easily.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the one thing, let's think about that focusing question one more time.
Okay.
What's the one thing I can do in my role as a school leader that by doing it would make everything else easier or unnecessary?
I challenge everyone listening to spend some time with that question. Really think about it.
Yeah.
Write down your answer, talk about it with someone you trust,
Mm-hmm.
and then take action.
Because extraordinary results require extraordinary focus.
That's right.
It's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right thing.
And when you find that one thing and you go after it with everything you've got,
You could do amazing things.
you really can for your school and for your students.
So go out there and make a difference.
One extraordinary thing at a time.